Hi guys, before we get started, I would like to announce that I have 2 slots left for my upcoming Sedona Spiritual Transformation and Vortex Tour Starseed Retreat. It will be at the end of October, and I'm looking forward to having all of the soul family joining together and being able to experience the beauty, the magic of Sedona. If Sedona is calling you and you would like to join us, you can do so by booking your slot with the link in the video description. If you would like to learn more about the accommodations, what's included in this retreat, the certain activities that we'll be doing, which is mostly going to these different potent energy vortex sites, guided meditations, activations, sky watches, and connection with your star family, you can learn all of the details on my website at lilynovacontact.com. You can also see the amazing retreat house that I have rented for us, where we will be meeting each day, equipped with a jacuzzi and a refreshing pool. I hope to see you there. Hello everybody, and welcome back to my channel. It has been a little while since I have had an interview on, and I have a very special guest tonight. I'm super excited for her to share her incredible wisdom with us. And many of you may already know Laura Eisenhower. So just a quick background. Laura Eisenhower is a researcher, author, and an astrologer. She is an internationally acclaimed speaker who has presented her work worldwide. Laura is the great-granddaughter of President Dwight David Eisenhower, and she reveals exopolitical information about his administration that has been largely held in secrecy. She is considered by many to be one of North America's leading researchers and experts on health, exopolitics, alchemy, metaphysics, astrology, and galactic history. And she also works to help free us from the 3D holographic time loop, false archonic systems, and military-industrial complex. So there's so much to unwrap just there. But yeah, Laura, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm very excited for this chat.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's so wonderful to see you. And I'm excited too.
So. Yeah, I think this information is very timely and it can help people to understand. So a few of the things that I wanted to touch on with you, since you have such a vast knowledge and it's quite impressive. I got to see you speak recently. We both spoke at the Chaco Canyon event, and you did a wonderful presentation where you really deep dived into the control mechanisms and the mechanics of it, right? Because like we see this, we experience it, but how does it really work? Like it can be hard to make sense of all of this because it's very multidimensional. So I would love to dive into that with you. I'd love to touch on the Anunnaki and astrology and just kind of see where you see humanity is right now. But for those who don't know you, do you want to give just kind of a brief summary about your great-grandfather's role, just if there's anybody who doesn't know who you are, and your role?
Awesome. Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's just been lifelong research. I mean, I'm still researching it, everything about the control mechanisms and everything like that. And I really feel that links me to Eisenhower. It's been told to me, and I knew in my heart and soul that I knew him before coming in, not as a family member, but more on a mission level, that I played a part in helping to advise his administration. And it even says in a book that was given to me that a descendant would come in and help complete his legacy, expose truth he wasn't able to fully expose. But not just that a bunch of us would come in and we would be bringing about truth. And it was said in the book that it was a gift from the guardians. And to me, we're all a part of the guardians, right? It's connected to our DNA. We have 12 strands and beyond. And what emerged from the cosmic trinity or the 0-point unified field and just everything that emerged, you know, we all have a connection to this. So I feel it's more metaphorical. A gift is in, all right, somebody who has a loud mouth that is willing to talk about things maybe others don't want to talk about. And it would be very, very necessary, because by the time our generation I mean, I know there's a bit of an age difference with us, but that around this particular window period, starseeds being born and going, from many generations, actually, starting in even the 50s of people being born into, the here and now, that generations would die off connected to the Second World War, and it would be very, very difficult for the truth to be told. And by the time disclosure even happens, a lot of the people that were there are in their 80s or 90s or on their deathbeds. We hear from family members in comments and sometimes interviews and documentaries about events that really took place. But in a very large part, history is being rewritten, and a lot of false narratives are being steered. So from the time of my youth, I felt this strong connection with him. And of course, I didn't have everything articulated, but I was getting a lot of downloads. I was kind of seeing just the weirdness of the way things operate just in the school systems, things that I think a lot of us notice. You try and sit still in class, you try and read and regurgitate a lot of that you're being thrown, but there's a lot of question marks, not a whole lot of room to challenge it. So I just sort of went on my own and began to really research the things that were calling to me, that my intuition was already showing me. But to have more of a reference point so I could articulate it, I could cite certain researchers and eventually meet whistleblowers. And because it was intercepted in his administration through his connection with this benevolent group, the book says Tijetans, not Nordics, not the first contact narrative, which I've come to understand as false, that the Nordics weren't warning about the Greys. It was Val Thor in 1952, who was later put on VIP status in the later 1950s, that was warning about both the Nordics and the Greys. And again, not all Greys are the same. Not all Nordics are the same. It's not all black and white, like all bad, all good. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so everything has been unfolding throughout time. But because that information was intercepted, that descendant would come in, it had to skip a generation, that a lot of us would be coming in during this time to bring about the truth. He was very reassured. And in a lot of his speeches and a lot of his quotes, and in his final speech warning about the military-industrial complex, he was definitely sharing something very cryptic and something very obvious about the rise of misplaced power, the warning of the military-industrial complex. And one of my favorite quotes is, the people want peace so bad that the governments had better get out of the way and let them have it. So I felt this advocate for him, like really believing in the missions that we have, that he was made aware that a lot of us were coming in, a lot of people were awakening to a deeper mission that's been very, very hard to stand strong in when you're thrown into school systems, indoctrination programs that are school, the medical industry, all the different ways of targeting. That would be very, very hard for this to be revealed at an earlier stage. And now's the time, right? This is why we're all a part of this larger conversation. So what I really feel in my connection with him before I was born and in my connection with him afterwards, and because he was appearing to me as a child, I'm like, who's this bald guy in a military uniform? And I would look at the books on the bookshelf at family gatherings. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like, he was a president and a general. And then it all dawned on me, and I would have that intuitive knowingness, but I still couldn't articulate it. I felt like I was living a double life. But I knew that it was going to make sense and unfold more and more, and I just had to stay strong and stay true to it. But what was intercepted in his administration, knowing that a descendant would come in and help reveal things that he couldn't easily reveal, and that a lot of others would come in as well, when they found that information out, they pre-targeted me before birth. And since I was young, I felt this sort of attention on me. And as my life unfolded and it like got kind of extreme, that's when I got out of that Mars recruitment, and somebody was used as bait to try and pull me in, that they recognized I had an affinity with from a past life through the use of looking glass technologies. So I go really into that in my book, but Eisenhower's presence was always there, because in his administration, they were talking about Alternative 3, the colonization on Mars. And he, it's like I knew coming in that I would be up against that. And with his help and guidance, and I feel also Val Thor and just my guides and just connection to higher self, that I would know what to do, that I wasn't here to leave, that I would find whistleblowers, experiencers, and other people that we would all end up working together. But I had to follow my guidance and remember why I came, who I really am. I'm here to do grid work. I'm here to call out a lot of these agendas and just dedicate my life to researching this, but also, understanding it intuitively as well. And that is how, yeah, some of these agendas are presented as well-intentioned, right? It wasn't explained to me that this was a nefarious agenda connected to deep state. It seemed
Are you
like
talking about? Are you talking about Mars?
yeah, it seemed like, okay, in the event of catastrophes, it's wise to colonize other planets in the event of these, things going on. And Alternative 3 was set up that way. That is kind of like a rescue plan or a safety net. And when I worked with Andrew Bashago, we could both admit, yes, but when the population doesn't know, when the majority of humans don't know, they don't know who they're voting for. They're not even given the chance to recognize the nefarious activity going on to even begin to know to call it out. So this shouldn't be done in secrecy. So my intuition told me refuse, and expose it. And in that, I learned so much about Eisenhower. The fact that he worked with Val Thor, helped to set up the White Hats. He helped to seed that, but it was already in motion before he came along. There was others beside him that were all about that, and also the Earth Alliance and Ike's Force, USMC Special Section. That he did not sign any Greada Treaty. He actually tried to invade the Dulce underground base. He ordered an invasion in 1954, the same year he was blamed. So my life has just been a whole bunch of synchronicities, and I felt he was helping to nudge me in the right direction to keep digging. His presence has been there. And what I've uncovered is what I didn't expect, because when I first started speaking, I shared about the Greada Treaty. I'm like, what if this is true? What if he did sign treaties?
Can you explain what that is?
Yeah.
For anybody who doesn't know?
Totally. And I know this is a lot, and I tend to talk fast. I'm like, when will I ever just slow it down?
Let's take a deep breath.
Yeah, I do try. But I know we only have a short amount of time, and it's so much to unpack.
It is. So thank you.
Yeah, there's been a rumor. I've been aware of this rumor for decades, and this is what really helped me to dig deep. But I didn't always seek the information that I found. It kind of found me very often. And also Lisa Renee, her work, and other people that I heard, I'm like, yeah, this makes a lot more sense. The body kinesiology, or just the hair standing on my end, or just, when you just really feel something's truthful. Well, the Greada Treaty says that a treaty was signed in 1954, which gave permission for a certain number of humans to be abducted in exchange for technology. And so Eisenhower is said to have signed those treaties. What I ended up learning about, and what I already, sort of knew previous to even more information that came through, is that 1947, you got Project Paperclip, you have the Roswell crash, you have Admiral Byrd's expedition to Antarctica that wasn't successful. What I found out later, as of a couple of years ago, from Dan Cooper, you can find out more in my book, and we can always, I can always comment in the comments to read the whole bio or get into that. I have articles on Substack you can find, and on my website, blogs. Anyway, very important person said that in 1952, an unconditional surrender agreement to the Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate, ICC, and I want to be careful with what I'm saying, not C, Drago Alliance. I want to be careful because I've been banned on my channels. Was formed, that a surrender agreement, and it was a carryover of the abduction technology exchanges that had taken place in the 30s. That's when it really began. So when this happened in 1952, it was basically a surrender because we really didn't win the Second World War. When Eisenhower was briefed and assisted by Val Thor, when he was actually really aware of what was going on, and he saw this unconditional agreement, and he was next in line to be president, not through bloodline, but through coercion. I really think the deep state players wanted him there, but it's not bloodline family. He was a farm boy, German Swiss Mennonite background, very strict religious, living close to the land, considered in poverty, not your typical. And I've done the genealogy, and I've dug deep in all that. But he was somehow coerced because he was considered a hero. He was popular. And it seemed like this guy's got a mission. Ike's got a mission. In order to thwart it, let's bring him close and act like we're on his team. That's what the Mars recruiters tried to do with me. And not all players are dark.
Real quick, the Mars recruitment happened in 2007, right?
Yeah,
when they were attempting.
Yeah,
2006.
And this is a carryover of something that was brought to Eisenhower's administration's attention about Alternative 3 scenario, colonization of Mars. There's Alternative 1.
This has been going on for a while.
For a long time. So this was basically leading up to the so-called end times, that in this particular window, the colonization of Mars, which was already an inhabited base, about 5 bases, people that have had 20 impacts there. Randy Kramer, that's part of the Mars Defense Force, says there are about 5 colonies there that are now considered, permanent. I don't know, like, so, and that was set up, the Moon and Mars bases in the 30s, 40s. Once we reached Warp 1 and we were able to form alliances, that basically meant that everything changed when we reached that technological capacity. Otherwise, it was non-intervention. So bases were placed on Mars and the Moon. Eisenhower's administration, they were beginning to insert the influence of going there, but with compartmentalism, you don't get the full picture. So he was trying to figure this all out. By the time I came along, it was a part of, all right, let's get a certain group off to Mars. And, the targeting is different for all of us, but it's all a form of targeting to control and to manage, the Starseed codes we carry, the Sacred Union codes, which are what me and my partner had. And we all carry that blueprint, the divine blueprint anyway. So it's not all relying on a partner, but basically to monitor and track, and whoever is a threat, to try and get them on a different timeline. And so they tried to do that with Eisenhower. They weren't that successful. So their strategy was to rewrite history, to blame him on blame him for the Greada Treaty, when it was actually MJ12 and the 3-letter organizations that were responsible. Once he figured that out, he wanted to invade Area 51, 1954, Dulce underground base, different than the Phil Schneider wars, Dulce wars in 1969. But you don't hear about that. You'll only hear about the Greada Treaty with Eisenhower to blame. And but this had originated long before. And once he was privy to that, he tried to establish things to be the counterforce. And he could only go so far. And what he was really trying to tell us is, it's not about the government structures. It's about we the people. It's about all of our missions. And the biggest tragedy is when we lose connection with that. And because we haven't really won the war, what does it become? A war on consciousness. That we would have rewritten history. They're engineering artificial timelines through Psy-Ops and false flags and all sorts of ways to hook us in. And that if we're a knowledgeable and aware citizenry, which he said in his final speech, we would become knowledgeable about what's really been going on. So when I talk about reversal grid technologies and a lot of the false flags and Psy-Ops and the weaponized zodiacs and all these reversals, that is, something I've been very passionate about, because it's obvious that some of the trajectories that we're seeing that humanity is being led down are not organic, they're engineered. What is the root of that? When did that begin? Who is the Anunnaki? Because right now there's the danger of false narratives being spread that make them look like they're on our side. And I'm not branding them the enemy either, but if they don't act as a stepping stone to help us to really reclaim the fullness of all we are, without gatekeeping, without banning and deleting, without canceling people from being able to ask the tough questions, then I feel like we're stuck in that loop that they've kept us in for 26,000 years or more. They actually aligned with the DRA, the Draco. So I don't know.
I'd like to add on that. Also, what I've noticed is with the Anunnaki aspect, this worship gene.
Mm-hmm. And that's part of the programming. Yep.
So that's part of what they instilled, not lumping them all. There are positive and negative factions, of course.
Right.
But you can, if you pay attention, you can see that trying to, by working through others, to perpetuate that. And we're sovereign. We're moving away from that. We don't need, with the worship gene is being turned off. So that's something that I'm glad you bring that up, because I think that's something that we really need to be mindful of.
Definitely. And that's kind of what links into sort of this shared mission. It's not, I mean, yes, we have a lot of compatibility with just who we are, just here for humanity, here in service to humanity, wanting to call out dark agendas, control matrix, reversal energies. I might bring more attention to, but I do feel, he was aware. There's some channeling, and I'm wary of some channeling. Some, are feel very right on, where he exposed a lot about the Anunnaki. Carl Mollison, no, that's the permaculturist. Carl, somebody, why is it Mollison? Anyway, I can get that information. There's an incredible transcript from him that talk all about this. and they collaborated, with the Draco a long time ago. So this whole Enki good savior, he's also a trickster. And when we hear people saying Enki's returning, but it's all about us saving ourselves, you can see what's hidden in there, and it isn't about that. It's to appear that way, to use that kind of languaging, but when you see the person representing it, there's nothing about sovereignty. There's a lot of exclusion. There's a lot of coldness and lack of being able to support people in claiming sovereignty or challenging any of this. There's no room for that. But truth doesn't do that. Truth is unconditional. And I mean, all of us get as close to the truth as we possibly can. But when you're devoted to it, you don't ban people for questioning your material. You don't ban people or hate people or dismiss them, if they question your story. Like if anybody questions my Mars recruitment, I don't care if they believe it or not. I know it's true. I know it happened to me. But I'd like to debate where that was actually going and what's actually going on Mars, because I wasn't actually there, right? I've explored, hidden memories just in case, perhaps in past lives. But, the things that I don't know, I'd love to talk about. And the things I do know, people can take it or leave it. It's no reason to dismiss anybody unless somebody's abusive and derogatory. And I'm not wanting to name names, but you can just tell, like you're saying, the savior complex is not just the people representing certain Anunnaki members, but it's the same kind of loop and a similar programming that people like you and I have picked up on. And it doesn't matter about the person so much, because it's more about controlled narratives. It's more about how much we need to fall back on ourselves. It's not about picking on the person talking about it, but it's about noticing the red flags that would help to point this out. And the more I study about Nephilim reversal grid and Nibirian diotic crystal grid, which are the reversal grid technologies placed in the planetary grid network to pull things in reversal for harvest and siphoning, to also keep our DNA dumbed down, to also bring us the aging program. This is all connected to Anunnaki and their hybrid lineages.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Can we actually kind of pause and dive deeper into that? Like, where did that the reversal grid, like, how did that first come about, and what does that really look like? So this is now we're getting into, the control. We've been basically talking about it the whole time, the beginning of the control of the planet and the beginning of the deep state and all of that. But yeah, could you kind of explain that for us? How that came about and the mechanics of it.
Well, the Nephilim reversal grid is an energetic architecture, and it's linked to Stonehenge, the Michael Mary lines to manipulate that. So the Albion and Cathar body representing the masculine and feminine. When you look at the Cathar wars or the massacres and some things in our ancient history, and this, control mechanism, and even those that were sort of born to override being targeted all throughout history, and how targeted it is now, but they can't really stop what's happening. Literally, the Nephilim reversal grid has been to break up the potential of integration of polarity and hierogamic union that we hold in our divine blueprint. So when we begin to activate dormant DNA, we are removing seals and fences, and we're integrating the electric magnetic energies that are connected with the planetary grid, the true planetary grid network. So this reversal technology was to reverse the mother principles. When you look at the mothers of darkness, when you look at the 13 families, when you look at MJ13, not just 12, it's all a weaponization of this. When you look at the 12 strand and being dumbed down, and you look at the weaponized zodiac, 12 signs, 12 houses, they wanted to keep the 13 out because that's the remedial tone. As of 2010, the 13th tone landed and integrated into the planet, the return of the mother. The return of the mother principle overrides this reversal grid technology. But they rigged the whole system with this reversal grid technology to keep that tone out. So they're banking on that energy never coming back. It connects to the Magdalene line, the Rose line, it connects to the Grail line. And it's not exclusive as in chosen ones. It's just a line that, was protected, also very targeted, but we all carry it, right? We all carry that potential within ourselves. So starseeds as well, they're here to help awaken that. And it's not so much about always labeling it like Christ Sophia. People get lost sometimes in the names, but it does connect with that divine masculine and feminine principle. So the planetary grid network, the electric magnetic energies, The elemental aspects of it, earth, air, fire, water, and ether, connect with the nucleic acids of our DNA. So if they can reverse the planetary grid network and begin to reverse the mother principles, which they have with the mothers of darkness and the whole structure of the Illuminati and the 13 families, and the trauma-based mind control, the ritual abuse, the MK Ultra, all of that, it's very, very hard for that energy to come in. It's sort of like it's hard for us to be fully grounded in our body if we're, highly manipulated and we're very toxic, or we're running reversal currents. But humans have been running those reversal currents because through osmosis, we immediately pick it up. Every pillar of society is streaming those programmings through the medical industry, through the entertainment industry, through the music industry, right? But then we see legitimate artists and they have a hard time, because you almost have to sell out to be successful. But, that's all changing. All that's being crumbled. All of that is falling to the wayside. But that original architecture, probably 26,000 years ago, the beginning of the last cycle, the final fall of Atlantis was when it was implanted. And basically it was a rebellion because these beings did not want to heal these hybrid bloodlines. It's not about blaming Enki or Enlil, but they're a part of that Enki trickster savior archetype, Enlil, the harsher lord of command, enforcing authority, hierarchy, and control through fear. They're actually like good cop, bad cop. Like one seems like the liberator, one the enforcer, but it's like literally in the same web connected to these reversal grid technologies. The other one is the Niberian diodic crystal grid. So Lisa Renee and Keylontic Science mention this stuff. Other people like Noel Huntley talk about the reversal grid energy and artificial timelines. And what this does, it scrambles the natural human DNA fire letters. It distorts the tonal lines, the natural ley lines, and that keeps our DNA dumbed down. So I would say Nephilim reversal grid is the harvesting and siphoning, anchoring energy inversion. And then the Niberian diodic crystal is like a control panel feeding reversal currents into the human DNA and planetary grids. So one harvests and siphons, the other one keeps DNA, kind of dumbed down. But the only thing that reinforces it is the frequency distortions and the mind control and the social engineering. Once we break through that, we begin to de-weaponize bioweapons. We begin to break down the geoengineering, because what we're seeing is a mind control and socially engineered humanity, and nature reflecting back how it's geoengineered. Humans are becoming bioengineered, nature geoengineered. But when we break down that programming and we step into that 13th tone, that connects to the ether and the law of alchemy. We can literally alchemize and dismantle the control matrix by simply bringing that energy in and awakening it within ourselves. So it's not outside of us, it's inside of us. But an example of this is, the ether element. That dodecahedron ether element was put in reversal. That is the main targeting of the grid network, to put that element in reversal, which is symbolic of the pentagram going inward or down, where the fifth element, that point, is going into the ground and it's got the horns, right? The Venus transits have been correcting it and putting it upright again, which shows that in this particular ascension window period, the Venus transits, the unconditional love of the mother, has corrected this, because the actual orbit of Venus creates a pentagram and a sacred geometry of a rose, and it helped to bring the mother energy back. So once that reversal was corrected through grid workers like yourself, sound healers, guardian souls that do grid work all over the planet, and that's why you're called to the locations and why you capture such incredible images, because you're already in that multidimensional awareness, right? So as that ether energy becomes integrated back into our beings, all that dark weaponry shuts down. And the only thing they have is to distract us away, to make it all new age woo-woo. Yes, there is new age BS, but that is not new age. Astronomers and astrologers have noted this Venus transit energy every 8 years that has formed this. So now that the reversal is now corrected and the sun started to move through the 13th sign of Theicus, which is ruled by the ether, now that incredible shift is taking place. Alchemy is taking place. It's a law of creation. But in order to hijack that, what did they do? Cover that face. Don't breathe in the breath of life. Do not breathe in that ether. Step apart from each other. Fear, 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 this incredible growth period and alchemical transformation that comes through the portal of Pluto. But if we fear death, we're going to bypass it, and we're going to be more linked into a dependency bond with the control matrix, being veered off into an artificial engineered timeline that is crumbling as we speak for the whole collective. I think enough people are awakening, but what is their next tactic? What are they going to try next? And this is what you're saying is absolutely where it's at. And what I've been saying too, we do not need saviors. There are guides, there are aspects of our higher self. There is galactic and ET DNA within ourselves that we're awakening, and our guides are there and present, supporting us. Nobody's going to do it for us. So this whole idea that Enki's coming to heal our DNA and activate the Grail DNA, that's not for him to do, because he's post fall distortion. That was never his to begin with. There was a theft of that, and what's returning is us connecting to it. Not, it's sort of saying like the narcissist is coming back to pay your bills, your therapy bills. Why would we want it from him when he compromised our DNA in the first place? And some say that he helped us and he upgraded us, but we were already, there is pre-fall, pre-distortion, that the Anunnaki was created to compromise, so that they would be our gods. And I'll just leave it at that. And people can take it or leave it. I don't trust it, but that's just me. And I know others and I know you and I are on the same page in many ways.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I've always just had kind of a weird feeling about that whole situation with the Anunnaki and all that. I don't think it's quite not like black and white. There's a lot of it's probably very, very complicated and convoluted. But when I started seeing just really this past year, I really started seeing, about a year and a half, I started seeing visions and getting some of these downloads and about them. And then whenever I went to Egypt, I saw just very, very, very dark things put into place by some of these beings. And again, not saying that all of them are bad, but yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah, we don't need to wait for a savior coming. And like, where do you think that comes from? Anyway, how some people think they're coming back. Like, do you think they're coming back, or do you think maybe that's a Psy-Op to get people to just rebirth, or not rebirth, but amplify that energy? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I don't think they ever left. I mean, I think we're dealing with a humanity that's been highly, highly influenced by them, and their worship still in some even dark factions of deep state shadow government. So to me, they're two sides of the same agenda. And both Enki and Enlil actually fed into the Nephilim reversal grid, a network designed to reverse the mother principle and hijack hierogamic union. So anything that returns to me is more wanting to manage something that is about to become sovereign and does not want that. So appears to be all about it, using that languaging. But why would we need it anyway? If it really is here to help us, it would step aside. It would say, look, this is what happened thousands and thousands of years ago. Here's the real history and the story, and let's be redeemed. Now, some say that it is about redemption. Well, if it is about redemption, why is there so much gatekeeping? Why is there so much criticism and ridicule and insult to so many good people that are doing their mission? Because to me, true oneness is diversity and harmony. We all have a purpose. We all have a mission. And if there are authentic missions, it should all work together, every single part of it, including information about the Anunnaki. But when it appears to be gatekeeping, when it appears to be using lingo, when it uses a lot of storylines or imagery, particularly about Balfour, that seems way off. And I know for some people, they know exactly who I'm talking about, but it's not about her or any kind of criticism. I was talking about this before. It just so happens I just see the red flags. And the red flags would easily go away if we could all just be a part of this greater conversation. Until then, something doesn't seem right? So if it is returning, and the Nephilim are a byproduct of Enki's genetic manipulation that has something to do with this Nephilim reversal grid, and the fact that that Enki or the Anunnaki and the Draco are aligned. What is really returning, except for them coming out of the woodworks, but wanting to manage the way we perceive it? because right as people are about to awaken to what's really going on, what better than to begin to smear, censor, and silence those that are ready to give this a voice? Because if it wasn't threatening, why silence these people? The ones that are talking about these particular narratives, they say that they're being smeared and silenced, but their channels have never been touched. And I'm not saying that that's a clear sign, because a lot of people have been able to keep their channels, right? But there's no fear of Enki. That's all to create this illusion of this is something the deep state doesn't want. The deep state was developed because of what happened with Enki and Enlil. Are they all to blame? No, but because they were a part of genetic manipulation and we lost connection to that Christ Sophia blueprint, this is the result. And it was seeded with all of that. So the Anunnaki aligned themselves with the Draco to gain power and technology. Those were the original technology trades, because the Draco are the original overlords. It doesn't mean that they're, the original, but in their mind there is. So when the Anunnaki came later, the Maldek explosion, and the Draco wanted to remain in control, and they started to see humans as that. And again, there's the sons of Belial and the Black Sun, so it gets really confusing. All I can really say is these are both two sides of the same agenda. And if they were really on our side and acting as a stepping stone, the mother principle would be more empowered. The return of the mother, more acknowledgement of the Christos Sophia, more understanding of our galactic history and what really happened with Tiamat and that explosion with Marduk. I mean, and unless these conversations are out in the open, it's hard to even know what is being, said out there. And every time I peek in on it, it doesn't get any better. I get more constricted in my stomach. I get more almost nauseous, and I feel almost stressed out, because I'm like, this is getting so amplified and people are just eating this up. And you almost feel like, you're just standing over here, even after all these years of trying to write about this and talk about it. And it's just like, you're just feeling like kicked to the curb. And that's why I so appreciate you having me on and talking about this, because it's a conversation that is losing momentum and being out there on the table. While there's a lot of people looking forward to this, Enki's coming and the med beds are coming and it's going to heal our DNA. Yes, there are med beds that are coming, but if they're coming from Anunnaki, Enki, I would think again. And I'm not saying it's all bad. I'm saying it could be a stepping stone, but until there's more acknowledgement of a much, much bigger picture, pre-fall, and what our true divine blueprint is all about, and it not coming about through using this technology, although some med beds are definitely going to help, there can be more attention on the control matrix that needs to collapse and the way society has to be restructured in order to protect future generations from being caught in the same web of indoctrination, which right now is gender confusion, because they knew that androgyny was natural. Let's weaponize it, because if people are really encouraged to skip out on the programmings that my generation got or yours, then and they're just confused instead, it's another net and another capture attempt. And I feel that even if those agendas are being called out and it looks like they're on our side, I feel that humanity's at a stage of let's do it ourselves and see who still is standing beside us. Because I feel if we do it ourselves, there's going to be more censorship and more banning if you don't follow a certain narrative. Because what I've heard from this particular person is, if you don't go along with this and try out these med beds, you're basically a wuss, you're basically a coward, and you're buying into the deep state agendas who are afraid of Enki. And I can't think of anything more manipulative and narcissist than saying that you're stupid if you don't go along with it. When our sovereign journey and doing the inner work acts as its own med bed, because the 13th tone is landed. The alchemical laws of creation are no longer in reversal as far as the grid network is concerned, which means that this planetary body is capable of integrating its own healing process to open up those gateways back to the star systems and back to the higher dimensions that we've been locked out of. So the Anunnaki in the day when it caused us to be in this prison planet are not the people I want to turn to. I want to turn to us, because we're healing it through deprogramming. We're healing it through connecting with nature. And if the Anunnaki still stand by us and say, right on, you didn't need us, good job, great. But if we're going to be coerced into it through manipulation, that's a whole nother story. So I'm glad I got banned and censored by this person, because I wouldn't have gone along with it anyway, but I would have maybe noticed why isn't this being considered? And again, that's turn around, and I'm hoping for the best because all I want is healing with everybody. I don't cast anybody the enemy, but that is just a red flag of a control mechanism. So the only reason I'm bringing it up is because there's only few that are really pushing it.
Yeah.
And I think this is a time now of healing our wounds, coming together, forgiveness and compassion.
Right. Yeah, there's a few things I'd like to say about that. Now, I don't know exactly what you're talking about with the pushing the med bed thing. I didn't, anytime I see the headlines and kind of clickbait things about med beds are coming or this or that or this or that, honestly, my eyes kind of like roll over. I think, maybe they are available or will be rolling out, but I think our focus should be on unlocking our DNA and our natural healing abilities because we are the med bed, literally. Like we can do so much. I've done amazing things. You can heal your eyesight. Like I focused on it just for like a month and I went back to the eye doctor and they're like, oh, your eyesight actually is better than it was before. My prescription decreased or healing whatever it is, pains. And you can also use other things like red light therapy, frequency is really it. And, but really DNA, being a contactee. So I'm a contactee. And that's one of the major things that my star family began sharing with me was they're like, basically anything you want to achieve or embody or create, start with DNA, your DNA, because you can reprogram yourself. You can unlock certain gifts and abilities. You can tap into your wisdom, which you've been, a lot of times we've been cut off from that, and your intuition, and developing your intuition is a big part of that. And another thing I want to add is that the truth just is. It just is.
Yeah. And that's why I named my book Awakening the Truth Frequency, because it's not about adopting my truth. It's like, what's your truth? Because when you live authentically, when you're true to your soul, when you listen to your intuition and your higher guidance, you manifest exactly what you need to heal. Just like when you injure yourself, your body knows to heal. When your life is injured, there's synchronicities that support an upgrade or a better path or, better people. But if your self-worth is caught up in the judgment of it all, you might digress. And when you're dependent on something that tells you what you need to do, what drug you need to take, and now med beds, I mean, I think that takes us further away from the goal, because I feel all adversity and disease is to get us closer to ourselves, to bring us closer to ourselves. That it's an opportunity to listen to those parts of our body that are out of balance, that are in pain, that are showing physical symptoms, to see what is the root of it, what is the trauma, what is the habit that I'm involved in that's keeping my body toxic. And once you understand that and you begin to create those changes, you're on a healing trajectory. And the ascension timeline is not based in med beds. The ascension timeline is based in, like you said, truth, deprogramming, seeing through all these distortions.
The illusion, right?
The illusion. And our body knows exactly what it needs. And most things in life are taking us on a path of upgrading, unless we misunderstand the lesson and we don't find that wisdom like you're talking about, and somebody else defines it for us. And that's why I see traps in the disclosure narratives out there that could potentially be another net, and some of the new age stuff. And and I love what you just shared, because that's really where it's at. The epigenetics and the eclipse season that we're in. It's on the line of the South Node Virgo, Mercury, Virgo, physiology, physical health and lifestyle, North Node Pisces, Neptune. Mercury, how does the mind talk to the body? That the whole principle of epigenetics is based on how the mind talks to the body. But if the mind is speaking programmings to the body's going to suffer. Then you're going to go to the doctor. They're going to give you some drug or some chemo, something to keep you dependent, unless you're a real healer and a real doctor, which there are many of. So it's not all about it being all bad. But, you can tell the difference between somebody who is kind of stuck in the matrix way and somebody who's a real healer and has that knowledge of medicine and helps you to get there and find your own holistic approach, or supports naturopaths and herbs and supplements and asks you about, your life or your diet or some of the things you've gone through. And it's a multi-level thing to address. And so the eclipse season and the growth period of humanity lights up the nodal axis, which is how does the mind talk to the body? We're integrating the opposite, which is Neptune. Can you tap into the creative imagination? Or are you going to run into where the mind is speaking programming to the body, and the multidimensional landscape of Neptune And the creative imagination is being harvested and siphoned by archonic and astral entities that are keeping that programming alive and actually taking your energy and your dreams and your creative imagination to battery up an artificial timeline that's engineered but relies on your power and energy for it to even exist, because they're the
Your
powers.
imagination, right? Your imagination is what helps co-create that. Your emotions, anger, fear, anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if it's like, and if it's being redirected because it's responding and reacting to a Psy-Op and it's speaking to the body that that's a reality, then you're literally enabling and making it happen for them, because they can't create anything. They rely on us to do that. If we feel fear, anxiety, depression, but we move through that, we give it unconditional love, we give it a voice, we ask it where it's coming from, and we realize, why am I giving my power away to this? Then all those emotions and reactions can serve us to begin to move into our dreams and visions and what we want to manifest for our lives, where we're the script writers. So, and you know this all too well. So, but I love that, the eclipse season is emphasizing that body, mind, spirit integration, and the way the mind talks to the body. Can it speak your dreams and visions and what your higher self is telling you and your intuition? Well, you're going to heal pretty rapidly. If it's caught in this loop and it's being harvested and siphoned, you're going to find yourself going down an artificial trajectory, but more than likely you will manifest a crisis for yourself to be able to, think again and catch yourself. But some get more immersed and more embedded in that net, unfortunately. But
right. Okay. Yeah. So I guess moving into the astrology aspect. So we have, this is all good to be aware of, right? Everything that we've been talking about is good to be aware of and good to know the signs. And now we can kind of move into maybe where do you see where we are now in, and then the astrology coming up. So we have a blood moon on September 7th. We have a solar eclipse September 21st. And then we have the fall equinox September 23rd. So we have a busy September coming ahead. And I just really feel a really big shift. And there's something that I wanted to mention a minute ago that I forgot to mention. With all the stuff that we were just talking about, spells are breaking. The spells are breaking. So I just wanted to reiterate that. Like it's been a lot of dark magic, a lot of magic. And a lot of the kind of going off on a little bit of a tangent, but a lot of the grid work and energy work and astral work that I do is clearing. Like I've seen and this I guess goes along with the reverse grid and the energy harvesting and all of that. But like Source has shown me the planet and just all of these like dark clouds, and it's just like dark magic like everywhere. And that's their way of manifesting things or not creating, but you know what I mean? Controlling, manipulating would be a better word, not creating. We are the creators. That's why we're so special. They're manipulating. We are creating. We have that God spark within us, and we have that is very special. And the key to that is in the heart and your imagination. But yeah, so I just wanted to reiterate that with all of that going on, the spells are breaking. The alliance it's been a really big theme over the last few months. And moving back to the astrology aspect, for me personally, I felt over the last couple of months, I've almost felt like things have become more polarized, like more extreme. The dualities have become more extreme. And it's almost like things are kind of amplifying, but also we're being shown deeper and deeper wounds or deeper and deeper triggers, the layers, and a lot of deep programming that I've been experiencing myself and also seeing in the collective. So I don't know. I feel like September is going to be a really big month for us. Do you have any thoughts on that with your astrology background, or just even your insights, or where you kind of see us heading and what the energies are supporting right now, and maybe what can we do for ourselves to assist us in the ascension?
Oh, well, that's awesome. Awesome question. Well, when it comes to these archetypes, again, it's about reconciling all of this within ourselves. We can look outside of us about Enki and Enlil and Lucifer and even the Christ Sophia. But I mean, ultimately, we win the war from within. And
That's
yes,
how you break the matrix.
What's that?
That's how you break the matrix. Sorry for cutting you off. That's how you break
I
the
love that.
matrix. Going within.
Yeah, because MATRICKS, right? The matrix, and the trickster of the matrix, right? So yes, it's important to understand what all these things are, but also to understand where we've inherited some of these characteristics. Not the Christ Sophia part, because that's, you know, sacred union. That's the integration of polarity. That's the divine masculine and feminine. It's incredible to know the deeper, you know, history, of course, of that. But when you look at the overlays, you're going to see it show up in your micro world. The micro world is very much like that Virgo energy. Your physical lifestyle, your physical habits, the way the mind talks to the body, your routine and work, and your connection with nature and also animals. So every sign in every house has sort of an overlay, sort of a societal imprint that is based in the reversal technologies that are reinforced through the programmings, through the indoctrination, through the habits and things that we learned, and the type of relationships that were modeled to us, like a narcissistic relationship. You might notice in your micro world, but when you clear that, you're actually clearing it for the collective, where those archetypal energies enforce that kind of behavior pattern. Because in a lot of ways, without, you know, and I don't want to make it about this character, but I kind of am. Why do I call Enki a narcissist? Because he love bombs and then binds us, which is very much what is something to watch out for. When we see Enlil, it's about the patriarchy or authority. You know, that's what we have to watch out for. Forget the names, but look at the people that show up in your life. You find yourself with control freaks or narcissists. A lot of people are surviving that. A lot of people have deep wounds connected to that, also connected to the dark mother reversals, a victimized mother, you know, or maybe a controlling father, or maybe a mother that wasn't there and became the control freak and was abusive to the man. I mean, it's not gender specific, but we all have wounds. So now we're in a time of amplification of Chiron. Chiron actually rules the 13th sign of Theakis, which is ruled by the ether. For us to really integrate that ether element and that alchemical principle, we need to be more transparent with our wounds. But it's being weaponized in society by the bigger victim wins. And people are very proud of their victimhood. That even Soros is funding movements that are all about victimization. But they miss the mark because it's causing more division, more polarization, and more fighting amongst people. Because if you're not going along with it, then let's all hate white people. You know, it's just the polarization is getting extreme, that it's one programming after another. One program after another. You think you're clear of one, then you land into another, but it's all leveraging the wound and the trauma, whether it's historical, whether it's in your childhood, whether it's racial, whether it's gender. It doesn't matter. We all haven't been the same race or gender in past lives. So to limit it to this one experience and to create these stereotypes or the rebellion towards stereotypes gets us further and further from the goal. So the astrology will always show the weaponized Psy-Op, false movement version. But right now, what's very, very significant is it's all based in right now the wounds. Mars square Chiron, identity crisis. When you're waking up, people avoid it because they have such an identity crisis, they can't handle it. If they can't wear a label, if they can't fight for a movement, if they can't stand behind something that gives them a sense of identity and purpose, they don't know who they are anymore. And the thing is, it's not like you're losing that. You're just finding a more soul-centered approach that is going to bring about greater results, because you're going to like see people on a deeper level. You're going to see the priority of love. You're going to see the commonality of the struggle that we're all under. And we're going to love each other more in the face of it, instead of fall into these nets and into these capture attempts to create more division and more war amongst each other. So we're not really doing the inner work if we can't first override the war on consciousness from within and stop looking at ourselves as victims, or like we're not allowed to be wounded because somebody else is the bigger victim, and it's selfish of us if we're white, right? Or we're just entitled. You know, all this crap being thrown at us constantly when nobody's actually getting to know each other. You know, God only knows that every single race and gender and culture has had its share of trauma in its history. So why even go there? Let's just all work on healing. Let's see more healing centers that address PTSD, trauma-based mind control, SRA abuse surviving, pedophilia, like all these things that need to come out of the woodworks. People that have been blackmailed, to do nefarious activities, that are so afraid of what we will think of them if they come clean, when they were drugged and they don't even remember. All this stuff has to come out of the woodworks. That is the non-weaponized version of a lot of what's going on with Chiron, that we have to bring all the wounds, the deep, deep wounds of humanity to the surface and handle it with maturity, with unconditional love, and with, people that are taking on leadership roles that are unifiers, that are able to call this out and just help people walk through this and find their true identity, where Mars and ego identity is not compartmentalized away from the soul, away from the higher dimensions, and it's not stuck in a trauma loop. So Chiron square Mars and also Chiron square Pluto. That's almost like we're going to see a lot of casualties. The toxicity is getting so bad, this polarization is getting so bad, that a lot of people aren't going to survive it. A lot of people are going to have a big turnaround and go through the most massive awakening and transformation. That's not going to come so much from being red pilled. It's going to come from their soul intervening and saying, we need to go deeper. We need to embrace something much deeper. Yeah, then the information might find them and they'll begin to, and for some, the information comes first and it awakens that part of them. It's not a one size fits all. So Pluto moving into Aquarius is in alignment with Uranus and Neptune, the two other outer planets. This is the first time in history, not in the whole of history, but in recent history, where the three outer planets have been getting along with each other. And so the North Node in Pisces, Neptune was in Pisces, it just moved into Aries. Saturn is retrograding, but moving into Aries. That's literally the embodiment of the divine human. Saturn is the law of structure. Dark Saturn is control and tyranny and rules that we have to follow. And Saturn in its highest octave is self-mastery and the law of structure that is able to be a container for the multidimensional. It's self-mastery. It's becoming a teacher, not based in the system, but based in overriding dark Saturn and the Saturn moon matrix, where the lunar energy is no longer dark mother reversals, victimized divine feminine in exile. It's literally collapsing that patriarchal programming. Not saying it's the men's fault or the women's fault, but that we've all been targeted, and beginning to break down that dark weaponry to get into the higher octave. So Saturn and Neptune in Aries is literally Saturn now with the multidimensional. The weaponized version is more control, more religious dogma, more control of that creative imagination, and trying to invert it. But it's going to be very, very hard because Pluto and Uranus are in alignment with Neptune, which means that the power of alchemy and rebirth, the power of Uranus, which connects with the higher mind, with Pluto in Aquarius, Uranus rules, is all about the insights and downloads from the higher mind, synchronicities, rebellion, authenticity, and truth. That no matter how much they try and invert things, the aspects right now are not holding any space for that. You would have to be so cut off from yourself, which a lot of people are, and so immersed in the AI, which is a problem for a lot of people, getting assimilated and getting lost in the AI, being on their devices all the time, that, you know, the nanoparticles and the bioweapons are very successful in creating that antenna link to the point where you lose your soul matrix even more every day. And that's why we see certain gray species, not all grays, that have lost their soul matrix. And there's tons of different types of grays from what I've heard. And I know you know a lot about this, but some, like hundreds I've heard. Well, Stuart says 66, or somebody recently did, of species. But the whole point is the dark agendas, the weaponized version of an unconscious individual that runs this risk is getting so assimilated through the antenna of these nanoparticles, the bioweapons, into what's constantly streaming at them, that they miss out completely. When you shut all that down and you literally take the deep breaths, you go out into nature, it's all very organic what is beginning to unfold. People are like, how do I do it? Or, you know, who should I follow? What? And yeah, sure, there's great people out there to align with and to listen to, like you, and hopefully my words have value to people and I feel good about what I share, but it's not about me. It's like, it will just happen. Just allow this process to take place, because, you know, this is true mother, father, source. This isn't lower creator gods, foster parents that have kept you from your true origins, that are manipulating you into staying dependent on them. This is something so much deeper. And in stepping into that, you will collapse the control matrix. You naturally shift the planetary grids around you, right? And you're called to different locations. You've been doing this for a really long time. So they'll probably feel that inspiration, like, oh my gosh, I want to go on a sacred site tour with her. I'm going to go on this trip. I feel called to do this. Because the minute you collapse all that within yourself, you are now a tuning fork, and you are an override frequency. The 5G doesn't get you. none of these attempts to indoctrinate you can get you anymore. And every time it tries to, you collapse it. You collapse it in the field around you. You offset so many people, like the Hawkins scale, that somebody vibrating in that love frequency can offset 750,000 people that are running a program. So it's just a matter of them beginning to like dismantle. And to me, I look at it like a divorce. You're breaking up with the narcissist, deceiver, control freak, betrayer. You've seen enough red flags. Now you're ready to put yourself in the position to honor who you truly are and what you're really worth, because you don't deserve that. Same with the system, same with a lot of these different tactics. And the thing is, they're not obvious. Everybody thought that the system actually cared about you, and that's why you went and lined up and got the you know what. And that's the same kind of game the Anunnaki are playing. And I'm not saying that it's all these particular characters, but their lineages and their hybrids are what keep this control matrix alive in these dark technology reversals. They just have two different roles. So again, it doesn't have to be about them. It's about recognizing that dark architecture that has compromised your nervous system, your belief systems, and your ability to trust yourself and listen to yourself. And also the judgments you might feel on the adversities in your life, calling it misfortune or calling yourself a loser, or, you know, just because you don't fit in. It's like, you know, that's why I'm glad a lot of us have paved the way that have been projected upon like that, you know? So I hope that explains some things, but the nodal axis is very important. It's like the restoration of the tree of life. The Mercury, Virgo, physiology, connecting with the branches that are open of the creative imagination, bypassing the archons, the entity attachments, and the programmings that keep that connection alive, that people drug and mask so they don't clear it and they don't do anything about it. So you mindfully and consciously doing it for the collective and for people that you work directly with, I mean, that is the real work right there. So, you know, and more people are going to catch on and find their sovereign way of doing it too. So I feel really hopeful about the future. So.
Wow. Mic drop.
Oh, cool. I hope it makes up for the other ramblings earlier, but anyway.
It's all good. Yeah, no, that was great. I think that's a good way to put it, that this whole time it's really been like a narcissistic relationship. And I think we've all, especially as empaths and probably starseeds and light workers, because we're sensitive, we're empaths, have definitely most likely been involved in an abusive narcissistic. And it's interesting because you don't realize it at first. It takes a while of getting hurt over and over and over again, and they cut you off from your power, from your intuition. Sometimes they make you feel crazy or confused or whatever. Like it's a very it's actually like a genius way to control a planet. It unfortunately it is, but we're starting to wake up to that and heal from that. So yeah, I like how you mentioned that. I think that's a big thing.
Right, because it's either like the narcissist, the love bomb, and then you're the crazy one, and if you don't go along with it, it's all twisted to really, and it takes a long time to heal from, or it's just the total control freak and just belittlement and making you feel dependent, and that you need somebody outside of you. So it doesn't even matter who that thing is outside of you, as long as you're not standing in your sovereignty. That's why there's so many different approaches to how people are targeted, and it's not a one size fits all. It depends on the weak point that they begin to discover in you to create that kind of event. That many are engineered. A lot of the targeting for people, they set certain things up specifically, but again, that's where we can also find our strength. We're not victims. That's how we collapse the dark weaponry, by in those moments recognizing our worth and the strength and vulnerability, not the weakness of somebody else has to solve it, somebody else knows better. You can certainly be a part of that greater conversation and offer our resources and advice to one another with no expectation. But yeah, and I really feel all these adversities and all these challenges are to help us to fall back on ourselves. So when people feel let down, like it's another Psy-Op, or oh my God, that's a false narrative, who can I trust? Look at it in a different way. This is your opportunity to finally fall back on yourself. And once you strengthen that relationship, your discernment is going to be so great. You'll see who your true allies are, instead of your gurus and that person you put on that pedestal, or that person that's going to be that disclosure when you are part of that disclosure. Your mission, your sovereignty, and your awakening is a part of that greater dialogue. And that is beyond narrative. That's the truth of what humanity is currently going through, to reclaim and embody. And that we walk together and we share our gifts and our resources, and yeah, encourage one another's sovereignty. I can't think of anything better.
Right. And uh the discernment is really, really big. And that I think the best way for people who may be feeling confused about what's, there's been a lot of controversy and fighting on the world stage, a lot of illusions, a lot of fake news, a lot of other things, as well as even within the truther community or whatever have you. And I think that hurts. It hurts people. And it can be very confusing. So I'd say maybe just a tip for discernment. Well, you really have to work your intuition muscle, and it is like a muscle. It gets stronger as you practice with that. And you really have to sit with yourself. But the key to that is the heart. And somebody can say something, but is their vibration actually saying that? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like they can verbalize something, they can say it's about this or about that, but really, what do you feel? And yeah, I would just invite everybody to, kind of take a step back. And if they're struggling with that, to really go within and work with the heart. And also saying, I do not consent. I do
totally.
not consent. Like that is so powerful. Anytime you feel any interference, I do not consent. Just use that over and over and over again. it's
Totally.
a it's a good way to disarm it and kind of reroute. If you think of this like a computer game or whatever, like maybe you're going down one trajectory and something's kind of looshing off of your energy or putting you under some sort of a spell or targeting you or whatever. If you start to become aware and you say, I do not consent, and then list off all the things you don't consent about and say, then you can ask your guides of the highest love and light to assist you in guiding you, your higher self, to assist you in guiding you. Show me the truth. Show me what the truth feels like,
Yeah,
and really sit with that. And that's a great place to start.
absolutely, totally. And and all the information that's out there anyway, you never want to lose your discernment. You don't want to lose your discernment when you're in a relationship. That's how you develop healthy communication, because your voice matters just as much as the person you're in partnership with. And I think everything is more about relationship and harmony in relationship than somebody being the authority over. Maybe yeah, kids that are at a pool, don't run. When it comes to warning about something that could be detrimental or poisonous, okay, yes. I mean, there's plenty of things to sound the alarm about, but it's not coming from, I'm telling you what to do and how to live. I think there's general morality that is important in how we raise our kids and how we live our life, that people can offer suggestions about, and you take what resonates and leave the rest. Because
Yeah.
yes, they can start out very friendly, but you notice that some of these people have a lot of darkness going on in their personal lives, and like you said, they're out there kind of preaching, but there's still a lot of dark shadow work they haven't done. They're doing nefarious things. They're not walking the talk. So why give your power away anyway? When you take what resonates and you apply it to your life and you explore what's coming up within you, and you work with people and talk to people that value your voice and your participation, that's building community. And I think we need more community.
We're
And
stronger together.
yeah, and if somebody lets you down, it's a betrayal if you got way too hooked in. But if you never got hooked in, you're not going to be as crushed. So keep
Right.
things at arm's length. The ones that you bring in closer, that's good friends and partnerships. And when it's a community setting, make sure you have a voice. Make sure that you're allowed to say something if it doesn't feel right, or that you're allowed to walk away without any ramifications, because that's totally cult like. And I think that so many survivors of all that, and it's not where it's at. And empowerment is everything, and not being in fear, but being very careful. I think the true ones don't mind if you vet them, if you interrogate them and you ask them the tough questions, because they know. And I think benevolent ETs know we're a traumatized human race, and it's not safe to just enter something with blind trust just because you're being coerced into it. If you can't ask tough questions, if you can't bring voice to a trigger, then how are you ever going to feel safe? And I think the ones that really care and honor that are going to be able to talk to you about it, and let you move at your own pace, because it's not about ownership, it's not about coercion or force. And I think that creates a sense of safety, because you're still in your own lane. You get to be you, and it's just about building community. And I just see so much of that still, and I feel for people that are only used to that kind of model, and then seeing them get hurt again. But I think so many of us are about the opposite. Yes, there is abusive ways to interrogate and this and that those who might be on the hot seat might, get a little overwhelmed. But I think just because we're rebuilding sacred union, it's about relationship, and it's getting out of the patriarchy and the imbalance and the duality, that it's going to reveal itself in the way we build relationship and community. And that's where the inner will reflect the outer, and we'll all feel so much better for it. And I think we'll be celebrating a lot more, because it's like, wow, I get to be me, you get to be you. And it's not about hierarchy, because a lot of people that talk about awakening are running that same hierarchical program.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, of course, there's experts, authors and experts, like your experiences, a lot of that I've researched. Some might call me an expert, but that somebody else that I talk to is an expert in things that I don't know about. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited that for this greater conversation.
Yeah.
So,
we're sharing all of our gifts. I couldn't research and know all of these things. Not one person could. Everybody has a piece to the puzzle. We have to be kind and respectful and appreciative of one another. Like even whenever I first started having my contact experiences and having communications with source and guides and all of that, like they showed me that even though, because I'm like, what is happening to me? I wasn't in the community yet. I wasn't public yet. I'm like, this is crazy. I didn't even know aliens existed a year ago, and I'm speaking to aliens and I'm having experiences with God. Like, what the heck? I'm seeing angels all of a sudden. I didn't even know they existed. And they trained me very, very well to be very humble and to know that everybody has a piece to this puzzle. And they showed me like a tapestry or like a rug. And they're like, every single one of you is a thread in this rug. We're all playing our roles, even the people who are agitating, right? Or the people who are teaching us lessons in discernment, or whatever it may be. Like we're learning lessons on all fronts here. So everybody has a role, and we're doing a very, very deep healing and gnosis, becoming aware.
Totally. And I love that. That's why, yeah, I mean, there's value in all of it. That contrast. It's like, okay, I resonate with this, but I don't resonate with that. That feels like a red flag to me. Does that mean that it's a red flag for somebody else? The only reason I speak about it is because I feel it could be such a trap that if I didn't, I would feel kind of bad. But it's not to undermine or smear. That's why I'm not naming names. Some might figure out who I'm talking about. But a lot of damage has been done. So how can we heal that? And if something can be healed with that person directly, that's incredible. That's a huge leap that can be taken forward together, because that's all I'm asking. These are red flags because that opportunity is not there. Because I feel like the Anunnaki are a stepping stone. So anybody who's not allowing that next step to bring in this other element that has been very squashed and very dismissed and very forgotten about, religion has not included the Christ Sophia or the Magdalene. It's just an important piece that that mission connected to Anunnaki is important. Why doesn't it link up to the rest? And why isn't that a part of the greater blanket that you're talking about? Because if it isn't and it stands separate, then I see it as a great catalyst until it's ready to join and unify together. Then again, that would be another important piece to the whole. And that's all I want. And that's my only prayer. And not to act as a gatekeeper or somebody that doesn't hold forgiveness in my heart for the role that was necessary at that time. But do those roles end up shifting into something that is a lot more holistic and a lot more unified? Maybe, maybe not. Regardless, I honor and appreciate that particular role and what it's taught me and what it reflects and shows to others. And beyond anything that I say, everybody's on their own journey and path. But I choose love, and people don't have to agree with me for that to be an unconditional way that I feel.
Right.
And I'm not a better person for it. It's just, I don't know any other way to be. And I know that my guides and the love that I've experienced in my life connected to that part of me that brought me back to life when I felt like it was all over. So it's just.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, definitely. Well, I think people are waking up to the weaponization of yeah, I mean, people play roles, but at some point you have to wake up to it and you have to like, okay, we're gonna like either stop playing that game or, you know, whatever. So I think people are waking up to that. And we're learning lessons and becoming aware of things, and on all different sorts of fronts. So but yeah, so we've been going for about an hour. I wrote down like just a couple notes of what you were saying with the astrology, the energy coming in, alchemy, rebirth, rebellion, and authenticity. So I think we'll kind of
Yeah. And the eclipse energy. Yeah. So
yeah.
that is definitely, pay attention to the way your mind talks to your body. Change the conversation if you don't like it. You know, when you feel a trigger, do you grab something that's healing and supportive, or you grab something that keeps you in an addiction loop or self-punishment? You know, this is where the greatest change happens with us. And that's how we begin to move beyond the archons and the lower entities. And we begin to tap into the creative imagination, all that is possible, our dreams, visions, the intent that we hold, so that we can manifest through this incredible vessel that we're learning more about. And in that process, we're unlocking so much more than we can imagine we carry. That is, that dormant DNA that's, you know, lighting back up.
Beautiful.
So, all exciting.
Beautiful.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And if I seem like I'm yelling, it's just there's this really, really loud thing, but it might sound very loud on your end. But anyway.
No, I think you sound fine. Do you want to share with everybody if you have anything coming up that you would like to promote or share? And then you also have your book, The Truth Frequency. Is that available on Amazon or your website? Or
yeah, I would go to cccpublishing.com. CCC as in the letter C, cat. cccpublishing.com. That's Brad Olson's website, and my book's on there. And also on Amazon. I don't have, I have some copies. Of the first 10 people who hear this that want a signed copy, that's about as many as I have on hand. And I can talk about how to pay for that directly. And my website's cosmicgaia.org. And I do a subscription thing. Check out my Instagram on the homepage, my Substack. I write a lot of articles about what we've been talking about. It's a lot to, you know, move through this reversal grid stuff. But, you know, I love being able to interact. That's what the subscription is for. So there's a place to, you know, build community, interact. I do discounted sessions, and I do weekly Zoom calls. Substack's a really good place too. And I have a webinar coming up with Michael Sala and James Gilliland. And I'll be doing a visual presentation about a lot of what we just talked about. And it's about how do we re-enter the galactic community. And I'll just give a little hint. A lot of what we've been saying is it's all in us. We win the war on consciousness within. And once we get over that war, we begin to recognize our galactic origins, heritage, DNA, and really a lot lights up for us. And your story is such an incredible example of how rapidly the lights really can come on. So that's my next thing. I've got some in-person events, but I will update my website instead of sit here and be like, ugh.
Okay. Yeah, I'll put all the links to that in the video description. And also, you're going to be speaking at Journey to Truth in Hawaii in April 2026. So I'll be there. I'm taking a back seat. I'm just going to hang out and have fun. Laura's going to be speaking. So we'll both be there. Jean-Charles Morian will be there. Abby Lynn will be there. Quite a few other people. So that'll be a really fun trip in Hawaii. If anybody would like to learn more about that, I'll put that in the video description as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I got a cruise coming up next year. So a lot of those events for next year, I'm going to update my website, but I'm glad you mentioned it. It's going to be incredible. Journey to Truth, best podcast. And I'm so excited to hang out with you there and everybody who joins. You don't want to miss this one for sure.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Laura. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you, and I'm looking forward to the next time we see each other.
Me too. Can't wait. Thank you. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.